Gerard Baden-Clay, wife killer. The trial of Gerard Baden-Clay for the murder of his wife, Allison Baden-Clay, was one of the most high-profile murder investigations and trials in the history of Queensland. Let's start this mysterious murder story with you. But before we start, don't forget to hit the like button and also subscribe to our channel to get some interesting stuff. Allison June Dickie was born on July 1, 1968. In 1994, at the age of 25, Allison won the Miss Brisbane Beauty Pageant. Allison stood about 5 foot 6 inches and had a slim build. She spoke 5 languages: Japanese, Dutch, French, German, and Swedish. Allison was working for Flight Center Airport at the head of human resources when she met Gerard Baden-Clay. She was working out of their Toombul office. In 1997, they married on August 23rd. After Gerard and Allison married, they moved to England. In 1999, they returned to Australia. Gerard and Allison both worked for Century 21 Real Estate Company. Gerard Baden-Clay was the managing director. He eventually entered into a partnership with 2 others, with Gerard handling the finances for their real estate company. Gerard and Allison had 3 children, all girls. On Friday, April 20th, 2012, at around 7:12 a.m., Gerard Baden-Clay phoned authorities to report that his 43-year-old wife, Allison, was missing. Allison had gone for a walk sometime in the early morning hours from their affluent neighborhood of Brookfield. This was something she did regularly, according to Gerard. However, she didn't return in time for breakfast the next day. The police immediately began their missing person investigation. They asked neighbors if they'd seen anything or if they could recall seeing either of the Baden-Clay's cars between the hours of 8:30 p.m. that Thursday through 8 a.m. Friday. The cars were a Holden Captiva and a Toyota Prado. In the end, it would not be the police that found Allison, but a kayaker. The kayaker was on the Colo Creek near Ansted on April 30th. Allison was found around 11 a.m. along the muddy banks of the creek. She was wearing exercise attire and lying on her side. Her arms were splayed out and she was in an advanced state of decomposition. Her blue top had been pulled over her head, which suggested that she'd been dragged. Allison's identity was confirmed through dental records. In 2007, Gerard met Toni McGew. Toni was a married mother when the two began an affair in August 2008. They each told the other their marital problems. Gerard told Toni that he was only in his marriage for his daughters and he didn't love his wife. Toni ended up leaving her marriage of 17 years. Gerard had told Toni that he planned on leaving his wife and marrying her one day. Gerard Baden-Clay liked to put on appearances of being a middle-class devoted husband and father. His standing in the community and how the community viewed him were important to him. The reality was something quite different. Gerard had, of course, reignited his relationship with Toni McGew. Gerard didn't seem to be working on his marriage and usually degraded Allison openly in front of others. During some business outings that Gerard and Toni attended together, they would be openly affectionate towards one another publicly. He also owed a lot of money to various friends and business associates. At one point, Gerard told his business partners that they were in financial trouble. This shocked them as they'd been having an excellent year and wondered where all the money had gone. The company needed to borrow money. All 3 partners agreed that any money going out of the business had to have all 3 of their signatures on it. Superintendent Mark Ainsworth was leading the investigation into Allison's murder. Investigators found a boatload of evidence of Gerard's affair with Toni, not to mention the financial difficulties Gerard had gotten himself into. What they discovered is that on April 19th, Gerard had a conversation with Toni around 5 p.m. During this conversation, he told Toni that she and Allison would be at the same real estate training the next day. Gerard's version of what happened that last night was that he and Allison had been up watching television after the kids had gone to bed. Allison started asking him questions about his affair. This was suggested by their marriage counselor. After a while, Gerard got tired of the questioning. He went to bed, leaving Allison in the living room around 10 p.m. He claimed that when he got up the next day, Allison was gone. At 7:15 a.m., he called the 000. He was calm when he placed the call. When the first officer arrived at the house and saw Gerard Baden-Clay in person, he called his supervisor, Sergeant Andrew Jackson. The reason, the large visible scratches that looked fresh on Gerard's face. When Sergeant Jackson and his partner arrived, they noticed an older man placing a vacuum cleaner in the back of a vehicle. This man would turn out to be Gerard's father. Gerard claimed that these scratches were a result of a shaving accident. The police didn't buy this excuse. The wound more looked like fingernail scratches. One officer on the scene knew the marks didn't look like a shaving accident. Police felt that someone had attempted to clean up the house before they had arrived on the scene. Sergeant Jackson decided that he was going to record his conversation with Gerard. He also did allow anyone to leave the premises and declared the house and grounds a crime scene. He also called on every available officer to begin a search for Allison. Meanwhile, Gerard was still being questioned. Even though he wasn't being difficult per se, officers had trouble getting straight answers from him. Gerard worked hard to make it seem that he was accident-prone to the police. Supposedly, he cut up his cheek with a blunt razor. He cut his hands when he'd been changing a light bulb and it shattered. Believe it or not, a caterpillar had attacked him, leaving red marks all over the left side of his chest. The police also discovered that right before Gerard contacted them to report Allison missing, he had done a computer search on the right to remain silent. Tony would say in an interview that she didn't hate Allison and didn't want anything bad to happen to her. In the days after Allison's disappearance, Gerard kept calling Tony. He used payphones in the hopes of not being discovered. He informed her that the police knew about their affair and were looking to talk to her. What Gerard didn't know was that Tony was in the middle of a police interview when he contacted her. Gerard wanted to know if she told the police that they were currently seeing each other. She informed Gerard that she told the police they were currently involved because that was the truth. Gerard's story didn't match Tony's. He told police that they had an affair, but currently he and Tony were not in a relationship. He also intimated that his marriage with Allison was good. One of the pieces of evidence collected was Gerard's razor blade. There's no evidence of blood on the razor blade. However, blood was found in the Captiva, a contact smear with streaks that ran down to the floorboards, blood and a strand of hair found in the back of the car. It was tested and matched Allison's. Throughout the investigation, police talked to a variety of individuals. They slowly put the pieces of the puzzle together. One of those witnesses was Melissa Roman. Melissa had been involved in a real estate deal with Gerard's office. After the business deal, Gerard tried to get Melissa to come to work for him. When she turned him down, he had another offer for her: help him hire someone to kill his wife. When she asked why he would want to kill his wife, Gerard never answered her question and changed the subject. As Allison's body was being autopsied, Gerard had been working on collecting Allison's life insurance. Investigators would discover that Gerard was in dire financial straits and that he owed upwards of $1 million. Coincidentally, Allison's policy was worth $800,000 to $950,000. Allison's parents were eventually granted control of her estate. This included her life insurance policies. It was ordered that her two policies be held in a trust. One piece of evidence that would help solidify the case against Gerard were leaves found knotted in Allison's hair. 6 different types of leaves were found, with only 2 being from the Colo Creek area. All 6 could be found in the backyard of the Baden-Clay residence. It showed where Allison was killed. After Gerard killed her, he dragged her body across the back patio and into the back of the Captiva. Gerard Baden-Clay was arrested and charged with Allison's murder and interfering with a corpse on June 13, 2012. Gerard claimed his innocence, pleading not guilty. He stated that he could not have murdered his wife because he would not have left his 3 young girls home alone that night. Investigators felt that Gerard most likely left his girls unattended when he disposed of their mother's body. Gerard was denied release bail on June 22nd and remained in jail until his trial. Gerard would file another application for bail in December 2012. This came after the toxicology reports showed that Allison had traces of an antidepressant drug in her blood. To the defense, it opened the door to the possibility that Allison had taken her own life. On March 11, 2013, Gerard's committal hearing, preliminary hearing, commenced. The purpose was to determine if there was enough evidence to proceed to a formal trial. More than 40 witnesses would testify. The court heard the Crown, or prosecution, theory that Gerard wanted to cash in on his wife's life insurance policy to clear his debts. Ultimately, he wanted to be with his mistress. The defense denied the prosecution theory and told the court that Allison was depressed. She was troubled by her marriage eroding, that she may have taken her own life. A forensic accountant testified that Gerard owed around $300,000 to various family and friends. He only had about $70,000 in assets. Tony McGew testified that Gerard contacted her and told her to lay low after his wife disappeared. She also indicated that she didn't have the money for a divorce. Outside of court, Gerard's family stood by him, and his defense attorneys felt the hearing went in their favor. Gerard's pre-trial hearing took place on February 3, 2014. This is to clear up any disputes the defense or prosecution had, and also to work out any plea deals prior to the trial commencing. At this hearing, Allison's autopsy results were discussed, as well as testimony from Baden-Clay's marriage counselor. The hearing continued into early June 2014 with a discussion about potential jurors being pulled prior to selection. They would be asked if they'd ever given any funds relating to the disappearance of Allison, or if they or their immediate family lived in a particular area, and if they've ever talked about Gerard's guilt or innocence. The same month, 7 men and 5 women, with 3 in reserve, are selected to serve on the jury. Gerard admitted at trial to his 4-year affair with Tony. He also admitted to other affairs. None of them mattered in his mind. They meant nothing to him. The jury didn't buy what Gerard was selling, and on July 15th he was convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 15 years. In August 2015, Gerard's defense attorneys filed an appeal based on a new theory. Now they were saying that Gerard had unintentionally killed Allison during an argument. He panicked and tried to cover up the murder. In a surprising twist, Gerard won his appeal on December 8th of that year. Instead of being convicted of murder, his conviction was changed to manslaughter. Court of Appeals stated that even though Gerard had lied about how he got the scratches on his face and tried to cover up Allison's death, there was a reasonable assumption he was innocent of intentional murder. The court disregarded the Crown's motive that the murder was for financial gain. His marriage difficulties were not sufficient to support a murder conviction, and the prosecution erred when they didn't present evidence to rule out accidental death. In July 2016, the High Court, made up of 5 judges, heard the appeal from the Queensland prosecutors, who argued against the downgrading of Baden-Clay's original conviction. The High Court grilled the defense as to the change in their case. Originally, Gerard Baden-Clay had nothing to do with Allison's murder. The next thing you know, she accidentally died from a blow to her head after falling during their argument. In a unanimous decision in August, the High Court reinstated the original Gerard Baden-Clay conviction. They ruled that the appeals court erred when they accepted the alternative theory as to Allison's death that was not in evidence at the original trial, and that the prosecution was not responsible to rule out an accidental death for the jury, as Baden-Clay's defense at the time was that Gerard had nothing to do with Allison's death. Don't forget that Gerard took the stand in his own defense, denying he had anything to do with Allison's murder. That's all for today's story. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and share this video with your friends.